It's time to make our last applique blocks for the vintage Boardwalk quilt. Want to see what they are? Hey Kimberbell friends, Cristin here, and we are working on our vintage Boardwalk quilt. Today we are doing the last of our fringe blocks, but we're also doing the last of our applique blocks. Sorry, somebody's sending me a message. I'm reading it. So the last of our applique blocks, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're so close to the finish line on this. So today we are going to do the 2 palm trees. These have some very special instructions, both for cutting and for our quilting. And the reason is because our final cut size on this is 4.5 by 12.5. So none of the quilt designs by Kimberbell go to 12.5 inches or to 12. We would need it to go to 12. And the biggest that they have is 10. So we're going to do some manipulating. So I'm going to give you a couple options, so don't be worried. I'll give an option for those that want to do a little learning of a new technique, or for those that want to just keep it simple, we can do that too. All right, so let's get started with what we need for these. There's 2 palm tree blocks, so we need 2 of our main fabrics. They are going to be cut to 6.5 by 14.5, and one is the yellow with large white dots and the other is a yellow with white swirlies. All right, so both of these, for one for each block, 2 blocks of the palm trees in 6.5 by 14.5. And then we need this light tan with the stripes or crazy lines on it. I don't know what you call it, but there's 2 of these in our fabric kit, one with the darker and one with the lighter. We're going to use the lighter. This is for the trunk of the palm tree, and we're going to cut these to 1.5 by 7. And as always, I back these with fusible stabilizer, same with our main fabric, backed with fusible stabilizer. That helps ward off puckers. It also makes it a lot easier to cut the applique pieces. I don't know if you've noticed that. Then the edges don't fray and get all messy and get in your way. So 1.5 by 7, 2 of these, one for each block, both for the palm tree trunks. And then we need our chenille pieces. So we need 4 for each block, and it is the gray, cute little flowery, or not gray, sorry, green flowery fabrics. And we need 8 of these, 4 for each palm tree, because we're going to use these as our chenille pieces. And these are cut to 5 by 5. You do not want to back these with fusible stabilizer. Leave them as is, so that we can use them for our chenille. 8 of them in 5 by 5, 4 for each palm tree. And then we're going to need our batting. So since our final cut size of this project is 4.5 by 12.5, we want our batting to be a 1/2 inch larger, which would be 5 by 13. So at least 5 by 13 on your 2 pieces of batting, one for each block. And then, as I mentioned in the cotton candy block, we are going to chenille these. So I use an old toothbrush. There is a chenille specific brush. There's also an emery board that you can do. Whatever works for you. I just use an old toothbrush and it works pretty well. So as far as the quilting for this one, so like I said, I'm going to give you a couple of options, and I'm probably going to make a separate little side tutorial on how I do that, because this one, like I said, is a little bit more involved. But it's our last one, so stay strong. We're close to the finish line. So I'm going to use Insects 2, which is that cute little dragonflies, and I'm doing that because it is a standalone design. I don't know what you call it really, but it's not one of the ones that goes to the edges and has to be lined up. It's not like that. It's just kind of swirly. Here we go, and here's a few dragonflies, and I think that that will be much easier. But again, we do need to make some changes. So since there isn't one that is 10 inches, or not, sorry, 12 inches long, the largest we can use is 10. So instead, what I'm going to do is a 4 by 6 twice, and that will equal out to the 12 inches that we need. So it also makes it easy for those that are using a 5x7 hoop, because we're going to do the same thing as you. So for the easier option, you could do lines. You could do, if you did lines that went vertically, then you would just stretch them. That would be a really easy fix. Anything that you just stretch, if you have that large of a hoop. So you need it to go to 12 inches. So if you have an 8x12 hoop or anything that's going to go that long, then you can just stretch a design, and that's a really easy fix. One hooping, done and done. Like I said, I'm going to do a double hooping just for those. I saw that several people have recently jumped into embroidery software. So I figured this is a nice little, here's another option. Okay, so either way, I'm using Insect 2, which is the dragonflies. You can use lines, you could use anything that doesn't need to be lined up. Actually, that's only if you're going to double hoop. If you're going to do one hooping, you could do plaid, you could do whatever, and just stretch it. Just know that in most cases it can be distorted, but if you do lines, I don't believe it would, especially if it's vertical. So anyway, palm tree, let's do 2 of them and let's get going on it. I forgot to mention threads. So we're going to need the slime green for the leaves of our palm tree, and then we need a light tan for the trunk of the palm tree. As far as the quilting, I think I'm going to, and I'm not sure yet, but I'm leaning toward orange on one of them for the quilting, and then the minty color for the other dragonflies quilting. So that's what I'm leaning toward. And I think that's it. I think we're ready. Let's finish up our vlogs. Hi, Kimberbellas. So a quick tutorial using embroidery software for the quilting of the palm trees. So we need to have a quilting design that is 4x12. Excuse my dog sighing. 4x12, and Kimberbell, the largest size is 4x10. So it's really easy. I'm going to show you a couple of options, and I'm going to show you using embroidery software. I know a bunch of you have recently jumped into using embroidery software, and I've been showing you both on the computer and on the embroidery machine. So let's just see how this works. So I'm sharing my screen. I've opened Sew What Pro. That's the embroidery software that I use. And I'm going to go to File, Open, and find my quilting designs that are sewing, stipple files, Kimberbell quilting. All right, so I want to show you a couple options here. We went to, let's see, we need 4x12. All right, so see, if I open this 4x10 in, what did we open? Was it vertical lines in 4x10? And then we always change the hoop size because it automatically opens to 5x7. So up here, this little button that looks like a hoop, and then we'll go to, we could do, let's do the bigger hoop. I know a lot of you have the 8x12, so let's do that. So in an 8x12 hoop, and then down here there's a zoom button to zoom out so that you can see all of it at once. All right, so there is vertical lines in 4x10 quilting design by Kimberbell. So a really easy way to make this fit in your 8x12 hoop and make it into a 4x12 quilting design is just to click on this file. I'm going to zoom out again and then drag it. So we're making it longer without making it any wider because it's already 4 inches wide. All right, so I'm going to move this screen so you can see the sizing. So now we're at 4.5 by 11 3/4. And as you know from previous tutorials, if you have an 8x12 hoop, you don't actually have 12 inches of space to work within. So, but that's fine. This would work great. Ideally, you want it to be 4.5 by 12.5 to really fill up the whole block. But this would work fine because those of you that have an 8x12 hoop, you have to reduce a little bit anyway to get it to fit within your hoop. So right here, you have a very easy solution, super easy to do. And you could easily do this on your embroidery machine. You would bring it to your embroidery machine and just lengthen it. We've done that before on other blocks. And this lines is easy because it's not going to overlap. It's not going to get thicker, or, it's not going to distort. That's the word. It's not going to get distorted at all. It'll just make it longer lines. So this is a super easy solution for those that want an easy one. All right. So that, and if you have a larger hoop, you could do this in your larger hoop and make it actually 12.5. So as we've discussed before, the first one is the batting placement line, and the batting tack down line is number 2. Number 3 is the placement line for the main fabric. And number 4 is the basting stitch. So number 5 is our actual quilting design. And you can see our actual quilting design is 3.5 by 11.5. It's not even actually 4. That's kind of interesting. You could widen it. I'm not sure why it's only 3.5 when it's a 4x12 design. Anyway, it's up to you. You can widen it to be the full 4 inches. So what I like to do is I like to then merge in, file, merge, and open up the design that you're going to work on so that you can see what it's going to look like. Vintage Boardwalk. And then embroidery files, vintage quilt. All right, so it is the palm tree, 6x10. All right, so then you can see it here, and it does fill up the block, and the placement line, or the basting box for the fabric, which we don't need because we have it in our quilting, that equals out the full width of the quilting design. So I wouldn't change the width. So you can see this is just great. And then, as always, not always, sorry, on some of these, we've had to pull the design down, and we will have to do that on this one. And again, that's really easy. You would just move this down, and preferably right down to that basting box right here. So let's see, go down a little bit more. All right. And you can see that, as always, for the 8x12 hoop and a 12-inch design, it's going to be tighter and everything will be a little bit more cramped. But let me show you, if we are in a bigger hoop, let's say a 9x14 hoop, then you could take that design and bring it down to the actual basting. See that yellow? This is the basting stitch for the main fabric. And that is a really good guide for where we want the palm tree. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can see the bottom of this. Right. So you can see you would want this placement line. You would want the palm tree down at the bottom. So really easy, moving it down, really easy with the lines if you chose that route. I think I'm going to do a little different route. So if for those that want a little advanced step on the quilting design. Hey everyone, so I wanted to show you another version of what you could do for your background quilting on the palm tree blocks. So I showed you an easy way of using the vertical lines and just pulling them up and down to make them a little bit larger. That's super easy. You can do it on the machine, which I show you on the tutorial. And then I'm also going to show you in embroidery software, a little bit harder version for those that have recently purchased embroidery software. I'm going to walk you right through it because I'm going to use this step for one of my palm tree blocks. So for this one, I'm using Dragonflies. It's Insect 2 from Kimberbell. And I'm going to basically double hoop, but keep it in the hoop. I'll show you. So let's go through this quick tutorial. So I have opened Sew What Pro. I'm sharing my screen so that you can see this. And I go to File, Open. And I am going to find my quilting file, sewing, simple files, Kimberbell. All right, so in sec 2, so if we take the 4x6 file and open that, I've already been playing with it. That's why it asks me if I want to do the auto recover file. All right, so it automatically opens to a 5x7 file or hoop size, and we're going to change that to, I'm going to use my largest hoop. I already showed you on the previous tutorial how you can do it for an 8x12. And for 5x7, you would simply double hoop. We've talked about that in several videos. So I'm going to go ahead and use my largest hoop, which is 9x14. All right, and then it centers the design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the whole design and I'm going to bring it up to the center line. And what I want to do, I'm going to eventually take out this basting stitch that goes all the way around. So I'm going to line up the placement stitch, or I'm sorry, the batting stitch with the center line. So I'm just going to bring it down. And I'm just using that yellow line, which is our batting line. And I'm going to center that with the center here. And that's already done. So that one is done. And then I'm going to do file merge and bring in another one of the same 4x6. And again, it brings it to the center. So we're going to move it down. Make sure you're only clicking on the second one that you merged in. All right, and same thing. So I'm going to bring it down here so you can see. So here's the batting line and here is the main fabric line. So we're going to use this line, the batting line, and center it with this center line here. It's going to look a little convoluted at first, but we're going to take those out so it doesn't matter. But you just want to line up that line as straight as you can with the center line, and also, so this line down here that goes down the center, and then also the top of the center line with the medium or middle right here. I hope this makes sense. All right, so this is over just a tiny. Okay, so now you can see we've got it centered on this middle line, and then we also have it centered on the horizontal line. So we're done. We've got both of those in here. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing at once. Okay, so see, we've got the whole thing. It's pretty messy here. So what I'm going to do is later I'm going to take those out, but first I'm going to use them because we're going to bring in that palm tree. Okay, so we'll go to File, Merge, and find your Vintage Boardwalk. Oh, by the way, you can save that. You can save that dragonflies design right now, because here, let me close out of this so you can see. So if you click outside of the box, you can see that right now we're at 4.5 by 12.5, which is exactly what we want. So yay us, perfect job. 4.5 by 12.5. That's exactly the size that we want. So you can go ahead and do a file save as. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorder the steps. And in fact, let's go ahead and do that before we import the palm tree. Yeah, just it'll be easier for you to see. All right, so as always, we have number 1 is our batting placement, 2 is our batting tack down, 3 is our main fabric placement, and 4 is our main fabric tack down, and then 5 is our quilting. And we've got 2 of them, so it's the same thing on the next. So later we're going to take out 3 or 4. We really only need to take out, I think I'll probably take out 3 and 4. But for now, we're going to leave them just so that we can use this line here as our placement for our palm tree. But notice that if we were to keep them ordered this way, that we're going to have on our main fabric, we'll have all of these little lines, and it'll be harder to take them out because they're going to go over each other. So you can do what works for you, but I'm going to show you how to take them out and reorder and do all of that so that it'll stitch really easily and quickly. So for this one, let me think about this. So we've got it on our center horizontally and vertically.
on this one, for both of the one and 6 really, you can see it's going to go right on our stabilizer. So we don't care about that. So, but we would like them to go together, right? So that you're not doing part of it and moving the fabric and doing all that. So it's really easy. You would just click on the number 6, and then I think it was control. No, it's shift. So 6 and then shift. And you can see I'm moving it. See the little box there? I'm able to move it where I want it. And so now it becomes number 2. So number 6 became number 2. And you can also tell because of the color. See, number 1 and number 2 are the same because those are the batting placement lines. So now we have, if you click on them, the batting for the top, the batting for the bottom. And when I say top and bottom, I'm talking about between the horizontal line. All right. And then number 3 is our tack down. So again, we want our tack downs together. And it's always after the green is our quilting design. So we would just take this number 7 and bring it up under number 3. Am I confusing you yet? So number 3 is, we know number 1 and number 2 are our placement for our batting. So now we want our tack down for our batting. So we have number 3 and then number 7. So click on number 7, click on shift and move it up. Just take your mouse and move it up. All right, so now we have our batting placement and our batting tack down, and they're together. Yay, us. All right, and then this is our placement for our main fabric. We're going to take those out, so we can just leave those for now. All right, and we'll move on. And then I'm going to show you one more thing at the end here, if I remember. All right, so we're going to go to File, Merge, and bring in our palm tree. I keep it on my desktop, Vintage Boardwalk. So see this with quilting files, you can save it. We'll try and make sure to remember to do that also, so that you remember to always do a save as. Very important, so you're not wrecking the files that you currently have. All right, so find our palm tree. Here it is under 6x10 palm tree. And notice it goes right to the middle. We want it down at the bottom. And see these lines down here? So this is our batting placement, and this is our main fabric placement. So since we have this number 1, which is number 11 on here, the first of this palm tree file is that placement line for those people that aren't doing the quilting. They know where to put their fabric. And so we're going to use that as our guide. And we're going to bring that all the way down to this bottom line. And the reason is because if you look at just that one, it has the bottom line. Just a warning, my dogs are going to come running in now because my husband just got back from a walk. Hello. Hi, baby. So we have this bottom line, and then there's this little center guide, and that center guide is going to come up here to the placement. Sorry for all the panting. Hi. Okay, can you go lay down? All right, so we're going to just take this palm tree and bring it all the way down here. We're going to line it up with this bottom line here. All right, so just take the file and move it. Just grab it and move. Try to keep it centered. All right, and then we can zoom back in. As I mentioned before, So What Pro used to have where you can just move the mouse, the little scroll button, and it would zoom in and out. And gosh, that was so much easier. I wish they hadn't changed that. I don't know why they did. All right, so we have it centered on this bottom line. Hard to see with all that there, that's better. Okay. So you can also tell, here, let me grab it and move it. So see, you can see it a little bit better once you move it out of the way. But this line right here is what we want to line up with right here. All right, so just remember where that yellow line is. Move it all the way over to that center. Oh, look at that. And somebody's messaging. Okay. So now we have it centered on the bottom, and you can also easily see this palm tree. The bottom of the palm tree is right at the bottom of our batting. Yay, we did it just right. Okay, so this is beautiful. Now, if you click outside of the center of our design, look at, we're at 4.96 by 12. So 5 by 12.5. And that's just because of the placement for the main fabric, which we're going to take out. But I'm going to leave it in just so I remember to tell you to bypass it, but we're not going to use that. So really without that, we're at 4.5 by 12.5. So we're exactly right. So we've got our, now I got to zoom out again. So we have our 2 quilting designs. So basically a double hoop, but we're doing it all together. And we've got our palm tree centered right at the very bottom. And we have our batting together and our main fabric together. And then we've got all of these. So now that we have our palm tree centered exactly where we want it, we can go ahead and take out this, the main fabric placement and tack down, which remember, it's always right before the green because the green is our quilting. So very easy. You click on it, right click and click delete thread. Same thing with the number 5 now, delete thread, right click, delete thread. And then right before the green again. Yep, there it is. So we would take out 6 and 7. So right click, delete thread, right click, delete thread. So that takes out the placement and tack down of our main fabric. And the reason that we're doing that, it's a good idea to keep it in most scenarios, but on this one, since we're double hooping and we don't want it on top of the fabric and have to move the fabric and have all those extra lines on there that we have to try and take out, it's just easier this way, in my opinion. Do what works for you. But what would happen is once we've got our batting down and trimmed, we would then put our main fabric down, which I'll show you in the pictures in the tutorial, don't worry. But we would put down our batting over the top. And I always just feel all around of where the batting is underneath the fabric to make sure that it's straight and that everything is covered the right amount. And then you can also tape it in place. I usually don't, but I probably will on this one since it's a larger piece and you want to make sure not to get puckering. So taping it in place will work. So we have 2 more steps to do. Notice that we have 2 blues, 2 yellows, and 2 greens. So what we can do, this is a little bit more advanced for the new embroidery software users. We can go to, what is it? Edit, join threads. And it'll ask you, do you want to join all the adjacent threads of the same color? Because you don't want to join together these, obviously. We want to join together the ones that are doing the same thing. The 2 things of the batting and the 2 things of the batting tack down, and then the 2 things of the quilting design. So those we can go ahead and merge together, and you'll see it will just do the ones that are the adjacent colors of the same. So, okay, and look at, now we're down to 12 steps. So if you click on it, notice now we have one big piece of batting placement, batting tack down, and then we've got our quilting design. And look at how pretty that is. And it's easy, right? Sorry for the messages. All right, so this is all correct. So we've finished that. We have one last step. Can you guess what it is? We want to save it. All right, so we're going to do a file, save as. Save as. That makes it so that it's a new file. You're not saving over your current file. Save as. And then what I do, you can save it wherever works for you, but what I do is I bring it back to my vintage Boardwalk where I can find it easily. If I do another one of these, let me go back. I made my own folder. So in here, you would just click this little button, create new folder. And I made a folder just for the ones that I'm adding the quilting. And then I saved it, palm tree, you name it, whatever you want to, because it's going to come out with the name of the quilting since we brought in the quilting first. So I'm just going to say palm tree tutorial, whatever you want to name it as. Move my big head out of the way and hit save. Okay, so we've done it. It's super easy and quick. It's not a hard thing to do. And this gives you more information on the embroidery software. And like I said, you can do on your machine the simple lines that's extremely easy to do on the machine. If you want a more advanced approach, you can try this dragonflies and merging the designs, and it's really simple. So Give it a try if it works for you. So one thing, if you haven't already purchased embroidery software, if you have Sew It Pro or Embrilliance or some other one that works for you, great. If you want to jump into embroidery software, it makes it really easy to be able to change the size of the designs that we need to, because on these older quilts, before Kimberbell came out with the quilting, they have border blocks that are 3x4 or sizes that they just don't have the quilting for. But I looked ahead in the candy corn quilt shop, and if I understood correctly, it looks like they all, even all the border blocks, they are sizes that Kimberbell has the quilting. So my guess, and this is me making stuff up, but my guess is that Kimberbell will very likely, guessing again, I don't know anything about what they're doing, but my guess is that their quilts going forward will probably be all in the sizes of the quilting that they have available. So don't feel like you have to make a purchase of embroidery software if that's not what you want to do. But I find it really easy. And one thing that I use too is that when I use Sew It Pro, I open every design before I'm going to pull it onto my embroidery machine. I open every design just so I get a visual of what is to come. And that helps me. And then I can import words very easily versus the embroidery machine. And keep in mind that I bought my embroidery machine during right before COVID. And so I didn't get classes. So you're probably more of an expert on using the buttons on your machine. And I find computer stuff easier personally. So I do the embroidery software and it works for me. Do what works for you, but hopefully this gave you a little insight on how to do it. All right, let's get stitching. I'm going to go for a bike ride first though. Can you tell? All right, have fun today. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. You won't see this till Monday, so your weekend will be over, but I still have a little bit of weekend. So anyway, have a great day.